This as President Trump hears criticism from all sides, including many in his own party, after today's news conference in Helsinki. What does that actually mean? Peter Brookes is here. Peter is Senior Military Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Asian and Pacific Affairs. Peter, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Good to be here.
You know, there were some strong words from Republicans like John McCain saying the most disgraceful performance or one of them by an American president in memory. There were similar comments from others, Democrat and Republican alike. But what's the effect of all of that, or is there an effect of all of that as we move out of Helsinki and into whatever comes next?
I don't think there's a lot.
Okay.
Right now what is going to happen is they're evaluating what happened in Helsinki. Remember, we only saw the press conference. There was a working lunch, and it was also a private meeting. We may or may not know much more about those other meetings, but that was part of this summit. The summit wasn't just the press conference. So I think right now on Air Force One, as they wing their way back, there's a lot of discussions about where we go from here. The president talked about the National Security Council meetings and working groups. There may be meetings at the cabinet levels, continuing meetings. But I think what happens, just like with Korea, with North Korea, there's a lot of work to be done after one of these summits. The U.S. policy hasn't changed. So they're going to try to figure out a way to move forward. And, of course, that has to be in concert with the Russians. So there's a lot of heavy lifting to be done after this meeting.
Also has to be in concert to some degree, you would think, with our own intelligence community. And the president, in at least the answer to the question from the Associated Press reporter today, appeared to throw his own intelligence community under the bus. And the leader of that intelligence community is Dan Coats, the director of national intelligence, who gave a strong speech or made strong remarks on Friday, basically saying we're in danger and facing the possibility of a kind of a cyber 9/11, and the Russians are the worst actors out there. Then the president said what he said. So there's a president have some cleaning up to do as well on his own end.
Well, look, there's going to be a lot of consultations. Director Coates was here in the United States. There's going to be probably National Security Council meetings here in Washington, or at least at the deputies level, where the deputy heads of the agencies, part of the National Security Council, will get together. That's where a lot of the work is done on policy in Washington, and decide how to move forward. I mean, the president's going to want to take the mind of Secretary Mike Pompeo and Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis on these issues. So we're not at a point now we know exactly the direction and what's possible. There's a lot of issues out there, as you know. So which ones are possibly could be moved? Which ones are the most important to us? You have to prioritize. If everything's important, nothing's important in my view.
If that's the case, Peter, what would be priority A right now? Knowing what you know, I understand there's some unknowns. What would you take on next?
Yeah, the top priorities, let me give you the top four for me. Of course, is cyber meddling. We have elections coming up. That's critically important, that even if the Russians don't reduce their threat to us, that we're prepared to deal with it. The other question is Syria and Iranian expansion. That's very, very important to us. Very concerned about Iran becoming entrenched in Syria. Also, I would say Ukraine. The insurgency that's going on. There are a lot of people talk about Crimea, but there's also the insurgency. I think also arms control. The Russians are violating some arms control agreements. Those are important. Now, people might quibble with that listing, and this will be a decision for the administration to make, but you have to decide what's most important and what can you get advanced. Sometimes you have to do a simpler, lesser priority thing just to get some momentum in the relationship.
Yep. Well, we don't know what, if any, progress was made in Helsinki. Maybe we won't know for some time or ever. But, Peter, thanks for coming on today. We always appreciate your analysis.
Thanks for having me.